What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Industry Spotlight. My name is Ian Robinson, and we have an awesome guest here today, Marlon Nunez. How you doing?
Hola, everyone. So very good, very up for it. So let's do it.
Yeah. All right, I'm super excited. Well, before we start, because I know the chat, everybody is super excited to get into it. I wanted to share a few things real quick, just so that you guys know that this is actually a series that happens every Tuesday. We have something like Industry Spotlight or a ZBrush Central image breakdown. So make sure to subscribe to our channel so you know that they're always going to pop up. Next, tomorrow, actually, we have a how it's made in ZBrush tabletop miniatures. So we're going to be making something together with me. So we're going to be making a little prop, little well that you can 3D print, and we'll actually be giving away the STL. So if that's something you guys are interested in, let us know. And then on top of that, next week, like I said, we got another Industry Spotlight. So be sure to follow us so that you know every single time when we go live. So without further ado, we're going to just go ahead and do a full-on introduction. Marlon, introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do.
All right. So my name is Marlon Nunez. I'm from Spain, also from Colombia. I'm originally, let's say, I'm kind of complicated because my parents are Colombian, but I was born in Spain. But anyway, I'm a 3D character artist. I've been working on the industry for about, let's say, 12 years already. Since the last, let's say, 5-6 years, I've been mostly focused in digital humans. So it's mostly making portraits, faces, and this kind of stuff for VFX, games, and some other advertising industry as well. That's pretty much what I do for living, for love, as a hobby as well. So that's what I do. I do faces.
That's awesome. That's a lot too. So man, kudos. Honestly, like I started sculpting about 7 years ago, and you were one of the early artists that I found that I was like,
wow.
oh, that's really cool. So it is really awesome and a pleasure to talk to you, man. So
you are making me feel old.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no. I might be older than you. Don't worry.
No, I don't think so.
So anyway, you wanted to let's go ahead and get you sharing your screen. So let's add you.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, this is awesome. This is really cool. Who is this?
So this guy is the French actor. He's called Dominique Pinon. And so for you that don't know him, the first time I saw this actor was in the Aliens 2 movie. I think it was Aliens Resurrection or Aliens, something like that. And I remember, I saw it when I was a kid, I remember. And for some reason, that actor's face always stayed on my head. And there were some scenes where, you never forget. It was very, like impactful when you saw it for the first time. And just recently, I went to a conference and they asked me to do a ZBrush sculpt like that from scratch. And this guy just came in my head, and I just decided to start doing it. And I don't know, he has like this face that is like so unique, in terms of proportions, like fat, bats, this kind of stuff. So very good actor. Just talk about him. Just very good actor. Just get to I BDM him, if you can say that. I don't know. And check his filmography. He has a whole bunch of plenty stuff, definitely. Oh. So you want me to go ahead and start talking about?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get into it. Just so the chat knows, you guys can ask your questions. If you have any questions for Marlon, please put them in the chat. I'm looking at the chat. So as we go through this, you guys are more than welcome to ask those questions. We'll answer them as best we can. So yeah, let's get into it, man.
Actually, as Ian said, feel free to ask any questions. I might be even talking fast or even sculpting fast. I'm not so sure how it's going to be developing, but just feel free. So one of the things that I want to be talking today, thanks for Maxon to give me the opportunity, obviously, to be on the spotlight, because one of the things that I get asked the most is about how you approach a likeness, obviously. Yeah. So one of the things that I want to showcase today is how I approach the blockout. For me, it's a very good, a good opportunity to showcase how it will look after. So here I'm going to be showing you the after, but also the beginning of this character specifically. And also in addition, I'm going to be sculpting a new face just from scratch, just streaming it, just to see. Let's see how far we get. I don't know, but in any scenario, it will give you more chances to ask your questions as well. You get more clarified questions. So let me start from the beginning. So obviously, this is the last version that I have in ZBrush from this guy. I posted this recently in ZBrush Central, if you guys are not familiar as well. So also you can see it on my social media as well. And one thing that I want to show you here specifically is about asymmetry. One of the reasons why I choose this actor was mostly about the asymmetry, and I want to kind of showcase also that on the face expression. So I kind of find a nice frame from the movie also to kind of to find that, because one of the good things that make a likeness being alive, because at the end of the day, it's about that. It's about making a face look real, not so much CG, right?
Yeah.
It's about imperfections, right? Like I think everybody repeats that. I just going to repeat it myself.
Yeah, it's funny how that is. Yeah, it's the asymmetry, the imperfections. It's what
Exactly.
makes somebody look like them. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. That's honestly, I've tried likenesses, so I think I'm gonna pick something up.
Maybe it's like the first time I was doing like this. It's not. I mean, I have this friend of mine. His name is Daniele Angelotti. I mean, probably you
Mhm.
know him. He's also a ZBrush master.
Yeah.
One joke that we have between us is that this BDSM, job doing likenesses, because it hurts us. Sometimes you can actually even kill yourself because you don't get the vibe of the face or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we are so addicted to it at the same time. So it's very interesting task, like a doing portraits in that sense.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the final skull. One thing that I did in this character, just to let you know, in terms of ZBrush, you have different approaches when you jump into look depth. Obviously, you can do the porosity inside ZBrush. You can apply the displacement maps inside ZBrush as well. For this one specifically, I decided to go more vanilla in that sense. I tried to apply the porosity in a different software. So I just want to show you how the last version in the high definition in this case, it's not high definition because I didn't use HD for this case, but mostly the max subdivision level in ZBrush. So that's one of the things I want to show you. At least with this one, I was trying this approach. And also something very important, you're going to see me later on when I start sculpting. I play loads with layers. The reason why is because I'm a technical artist. I don't feel myself as a very artistic artist, so I tend to do a lot of mistakes while sculpting. So just to let you know, it's very good to have a non-destructive workflow. So you can always come back. I get to come back to my own layers back and forth just before I kind of get happy into it.
Yeah, make those adjustments. And even too with layers, you can fine tune those sliders right there.
Exactly.
So yeah, you can really like bring up a cheekbone and you're like, I took that too far, knock that back down.
Exactly, and you can just approach different areas. So that's my approach. Obviously, it's not necessarily the best one, but it's just something that I want to let you know.
Yeah.
So I want to show you before I start how everything starts here. So every time you create a face, there is a head, there is a methodology behind it. One thing that I want to show you as a character artist, and probably every single character artist in town has this book, and I'm going to also talk about it, and it's this one, Anatomy of Facial Expressions. Especially if you're doing blend shapes, that's pretty much I use it as a screen. It's funny because I have also the PDF, but I hate PDFs for this kind of stuff, so it's even better if you have the physical book for this kind of stuff. And it gives you a bunch of information about the school shape and mostly about fat baths and this kind of stuff, so it's extremely handy. So just to let you know. So what I'm saying, like approaching ahead is very methodological. I'm going to be doing from scratch with the new character, but I want to show you this time lapse so you guys are aware how everything starts from scratch. So obviously we're going to start from a sphere because it's just a simple shape. And from there I can explain a little bit better how I approach this kind of stuff. And from there, we're going to be extracting mostly some of the school landmarks. So when it comes to school landmarks, I'm talking about the orbital, nasal, and the zygomatic and this kind of stuff of areas. And from there, we're going to start focusing on the lips, on the nose, and also taking the eyes. The eyes are always the trickiest because once the eyes pop up is when you realize that you are going the right direction or not. It's just naturally the way it happens. And from there, you start polishing. Always working in symmetry initially. Later on, you start playing with more asymmetry, with asymmetry, of course. But the most important, the first block out, that's what I'm trying to do today, is having what I'm calling the anatomy facts. There is no way to do tracing. There is no way to approach a likeness before achieving first the skull shape and also the anatomy behind the actor. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but it should be realistic. when it
Yeah.
comes to proportions, for example, when it comes also to, you know, like a shapes, silhouette, volumes. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to approach in this stream. Obviously, guys, feel free to ask any questions about anatomy, also
Yeah.
about ZBrush tips. I'm going to give you some of the ZBrush tips that I have while sculpting. It's very easy in that sense. But hopefully at the end of this stream, you have a better approach, you have a better understanding, and you are feeling less afraid about how to approach this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my goal here.
When you start sculpting and you start finding the base shape of the skull, do you switch to any type of perspective mode out the gate, or do you stay in orthographic and kind of feel it out?
I never play orthographic.
Yeah.
I never play orthographic, and it's a very good question, because one of my first character that I did, I think, write the likeness was Gandhi, and I did it fully orthographic. I don't remember why, but I just feel more comfortable. But with the time, I realized that actually makes no sense. The reason why is because when you are reading references, and mostly when you're reading different references with different camera, you know, focal lengths, etc., you need to start making those adjustments ideally already in the canvas. So one of the tricks that I'm going to show you also today is how to use ZBrush cameras, how to read the crop factor. If you guys don't know what is that, I will be showcasing you what is the crop factor, and also how, you know, to play with this reference in that sense. So we can only care or focus about the sculpt. So we can get that technical sides apart and focus just on the sculpt.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
All right. So okay. So just for your amusement, I'm going to be working this guy. So
Perfect.
I hope you guys can recognize him.
Everybody should love Danny. Danny's
Yeah,
really
everybody.
awesome.
Yeah, Danny, motherfucking Trevor.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a rock star, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, which type of celeb should I try to do for the stream, right? So
Yeah.
it should be like well known as well. It should
Well,
be
he's-
asymmetrical.
And
Yeah,
he's so interesting. Like his fat pads are interesting. Like the way
exactly.
and the way he's aged is even more fascinating.
I agree.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
I totally agree. It's one of these faces that are so charismatic by itself. It just it's just so much fun. So my wife told me about it, and it's like, oh, you know what? Yes, it just works perfect for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be sculpting this guy. One thing when it comes to references, if you guys are new into likeness, or you guys are kind of want to get to know more about at least my approach, and I guess most of the likeness artist approach. When it comes to reference, I really suggest you, and it's a mistake that I do all the time, try to start to less reference as possible. And there is explanation why. In every picture, we are discussing a different focal length, a different age, a different fat. I mean, the actor, depending on the role they are playing, they are getting fatter or the slimmer or in shape. I don't know. So a lot of times the eye is going to play against it, and you're going to be just jumping in and out from the likeness. It happened to me a lot of times. So one of the things that I start trying to force myself, especially lately, is try to use one single image as much as possible for the frontal, one for the profile, and one for the quarter, as much as you can. Obviously, it's not perfect. You're going to need more reference in that sense, but ideally try to start to one. Just saying. So I decided here, from all the few images that I was gathering, I'm going to focus in these three. These two kind of have, I mean, these are two frontal, so it's not so relevant. So I'm going to be using this frontal and this profile to start from. And from there, I'm going to be checking some quarter view, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on these two, so it's easier for me to explain the anatomy behind it.
Cool. We did get a good question here. What facial features do you consider to be the most important, especially when you're looking at references and starting out?
Proportions. So when you're doing when you're sculpting a likeness, you're always looking for the same proportions. I hope the light is okay. So the proportions are the cuticle distance, the eye corner distance. You have also the nostril distance. You have the mouth corner distance. You're going to have also what is called, let's say, the masseter, this area distance. You have also a zygomatic distance. That's pretty much what you are trying to approach when it comes to likeness. Obviously, in terms of anatomy, it's more about like the shapes and the volumes. But when you are trying to get the likeness, it's mostly all about proportions. Then it becomes more alive once you start playing with the asymmetry, and also once the eyes pop up, you start playing a little bit more with it. But it's all about proportions, so it's very important taking in consideration this kind of stuff. All right, so this is ZBrush, right? So let me just get the sphere, make it polymesh 3D. So let's start vanilla here. I don't have anything else open, so I just want to be sure that nothing's happening. All right. So when I start a face, I always start the same way. So first, I'm going to kill the perspective for one specific reason. I'm going to try just to get a very basic skull shape just from scratch. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get my clip brush. So I'm going to get here, press C, and then just get the clip curve. I'm going to press OK. And then I'm just going to make, sorry, let me apply the symmetry. I'm going to press X on the keyboard. And then I'm just going to do this. Not so much, maybe something like, something a little bit more, maybe something like this. I think like this should be fine, even a little bit more. Yeah, I guess something like this.
A little more, a little more, a little more.
Yeah, we are thinking we never get satisfied, right? Like,
yeah,
man, we're horrible. So what I'm doing that, if you think about the skull shape, because of the temporal area, also the parietal bone, it's kind of flat. It's not exactly flat, but you have a very change of angle in that sense. So I'm trying to simplify it from the beginning in that sense. So what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to make sure that I find the center of this sphere. So I'm just going to make a small cross here. I still have symmetry on, yeah. And I'm just going to make the cross here. And I'm going to try to find this middle point. The reason why is because this middle point is going to establish where the ear is going to be happening, and also from there going to be extracting the maxilla and also the jaw area. So it's as simple as just get the quarter view here. Sorry, get the quarter from the skull, and then just get a small stroke down. This is going to help me at least to kind of get some initial shape from the face without doing much. As you can tell, obviously it's not perfect, but at least it kind of resembles a little bit to what is a skull shape in a simplified way. So what we do from here, the next step is start getting the eyes. The only problem is about the topology. Obviously, once we start pulling everything down, the topology start like a working, stretching in and out. I think you can hear a dog from my window.
Okay.
It's not my dog, just to let you know.
Okay, don't worry.
It's just that I love to work with open windows. It's a obsession from my.
You got to get that fresh air, man. We got to step outside once in a while. As an artist, I know this desk is my world. I never leave it. Step outside.
I know, but I agree. We need this reminder that there is a world outside, guys. Right? So after the stream, be in the stream, but later go for a walk.
Yeah.
So the day is beautiful. Anyway, so let's talk about the orbital area. I'm not going to grab the reference yet from Danny Trejo. I'm just going to talk about some anatomy facts. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to start carving what is here, the orbital area. I'm a very simplistic artist when I'm sculpting. Mostly I'm using the move brush and the standard brush, a little bit of clay. I don't get very complicated when it comes to brushes. If you guys have these questions, I'm very simplistic in that sense. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going literally to carve like what it could be, the orbital cavity from the skull. From there, we're going to be extracting what is the nasal bone. So the nasal bone has a very characteristic shape here. I wonder if this is the biggest the biggest gizmo that I can get. Let me go to the cam view. Yeah, this is the biggest. Just so you guys can see how the nasal bone, we have the glabella that is going inwards, and we get the nasal bone that is going outwards. So we're going to try to establish this. So we have first the glabella, and then we're going to have the nasal bone kind of going outwards. Obviously, from there, we're going to have the nose, but we're going to just push it a little bit, just a little bit before getting into the references. And from there, we can already start establishing a little bit how the nose should be look like, just in a very simplistic way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no worries about, like nostrils and this kind of stuff. It's kind of irrelevant in this case. So that's the first stage. And when it comes to the mouth, obviously here in this area, we have obviously the teeth area. It creates some volume. So we're just going to push it a little bit outwards just because we want it. Just something like this. Very, very simplistic. That's the best way, in my opinion, to approach a face sculpt from scratch. And it works. And I approach the same way, stylized characters or realistic. It doesn't really matter. No. So one of the good things about this line, I didn't mention before, it's about the temporal line. The temporal line is pretty much where is the intersection between the frontal bone and also the temporal bone. That is this one that you see here, and you have the frontal bone that is the massive one that is we have here in front. So this temporal line is going to establish this division. So just by doing this line, we can already start establishing where is going to be happening all those. So we can already start extracting the parietal area. We can already start, like fixing a little bit here in the maxillary area as well. Let me try start smoothing things out. Obviously, all these areas are a bit weird, so we're going to be, like smoothing things out. Let me start killing the frame, the topology frame, and then we can already have something very, very simple. But in this way, we can have a very easy approach to what would be a skull shape from a very basic point of view.
Yeah.
Let me just fix it a little bit.
And you're not in perspective mode right now, are you?
Good question. I'm not in perspective mode, and actually, that's a very good question. You see, that's kind of stuff that I start talking, and then forget about the basics. All right, Marlon, get out of here. So let me talk about perspective. Okay, I think it's the right moment to bring the Danny Trejo references that I think I put them there here. No, I didn't. Where I put them here, Danny Trejo. So I said before that I was going to be focusing on, I think I didn't even grab it. Let me just get this. Let me just make it very simple. This one is even very low resolution, but I think it's going to be fine. And let me just grab this one. I'm just making the screens from my own screen, which is a bit absurd, but it kind of helps me a lot of times.
Yeah, it's really good to just screen grab stuff sometimes.
Yeah, just screen grab it. Just screen grab it, man. So easy, right? So let me just add this one.
For those of you who don't know, he's just going up to texture and he's just importing in from his image as a texture through Spotlight, which will allow him to put that on.
Exactly. Exactly, that's right. I didn't explain that. I'm exporting exactly. I'm importing them just as a texture, and then getting them into this what is called the Spotlight. You press C with your keyboard, and you can access the Spotlight. You don't press C, and you cannot get out. I need to get out the Spotlight projection as well. Let me talk something about perspective, and I think it's something very relevant when it comes to ZBrush specifically. Let's say we have different. Obviously, we have different focal lengths. I have them here on my UI because I play a lot with it. Otherwise, you can find it if I don't run under Draw, and then you have here the focal length. You have also a crop factor, which I have everything in my UI, so I won't be jumping into it so much, but you can find them here. So obviously, you have all the different focal lengths, right? Something about ZBrush specifically that I found, and I think it's kind of relevant, is the fact that the focal length works depending where the subtool is positioned on the world and also what is the size of it. So as you can tell here, if I disable my sphere, if I play with different focal lengths, we can tell that actually it's happening. Check out the 18 millimeters. So it's like the classic, fun shot. But exactly. But what happens if I get that sphere? I pull it down here and I just zoom in like crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So let me jump back again here. So as you can tell, I'm now jumping between a whole bunch of different focal lengths, but nothing is happening. So something that is very important in ZBrush, try to have your subtools always positioned in 0, 0, 0 as much as you can. And also try to be sure that, the size is not that crazy. So the focal length makes sense. So once I delete the sphere, what is going to happen is that the focal length just pop up again. So it's very important because it will allow you to work as close as possible as your references.
Yep, good point.
So when it comes to references, the other question, obviously, that you guys are going to have is like, what type of focal length is this one? You don't have to be, photographers or nothing like that. I think it's very straightforward most of the time. In my case, most of the reference, I get them from photo shooting. Or, for example, this case, like it could be just crops or, like a photo session from different, like events and so on, which means that the photographer probably is far. Probably using I think it's a telescope. It's called a tele.
Oh my gosh.
That one. So it's like 135 millimeters, 110 millimeters, so something where the perspective get killed, or it could be that they're using crop factor. So just by default, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to be playing with something around 85 millimeters for now. But what I'm going to be already deciding is that this picture probably is a crop from another picture. So it means that probably the perspective is being killed a little bit more. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to put my crop factor in something like a 1.5. This helps me quite a lot, just to do it from scratch. So when I see
Telephoto.
pictures,
Sorry.
exactly,
Telephoto
exactly,
file.
exactly.
I drew a blank on that. Tony. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. You saved the stream. Um, so yeah, it kind of save you. So you can already decide, all right, I'm sure it's at 85 millimeters, but let me play with the 1.5 crop factor, so you already have that. Anyway, thanks Ian for the reminder of the perspective, because I was already
No, you did. It was actually a question that came in too. They were asking like they want to know the specific camera lens and stuff like that.
Oh my god.
You know.
And it happens sometimes, you get into the zone, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh my god, it looks perfect, and then, oh man, perspective, no, and then fix that. Try to fix that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the next thing that we're going to be talking, obviously, is about already start getting some elements in shape. So when it comes to proportions, I was talking about like a whole bunch of different proportions. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to first try to get as close as possible to the overall shape from this guy. So we can already try to mimic a little bit from what we see here. The school volume doesn't seem that big, which is interesting. Something very, very important with guys that are very strong, or even giants, they have so much testosterone in the bodies. So the orbital area, all the brow area tends to be like a very strong. So it's something that we can take in mind in this guy. So by the time we're kind of working this guy, we know already that all the brow area is going to be kind of pushing outwards in that sense. And obviously here we have the frontal. Oh my god, I think the sensitivity is a little bit off. Let me just try to fix it. Okay, got fixed. And then we have the frontal bone. This is a tiny clue that I try to do myself, and it's like I try always to kind of look for some basic shapes here, and most of the time I'm trying to look for these triangles that you see here. Mm-hmm. When I'm working this frontal area, and these two triangles are kind of defined between the intersection of the temporal line, the frontal bone, and also all the orbital area in this sense. So it kind of helps me quite a lot to get just very, very basic shape from the beginning. Let me try to fix that a little bit. Cool. All right, so let me talk a little bit about how we carry on from here. So what I want to do right now, I want to start adding subdivisions. You have different ways to go around it. In my case, at this stage, I try to dynamesh it. The reason why is because if you subdivide it, you're not going to have enough subdivisions in this area, so it's not going to be perfect. So I try to keep polygons as even as possible. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to even subdivide just once, just for God's sake, and then I'm just going to make a dynamesh from this. Keeping the resolution very low at the beginning, just because we are focusing on the main shape, and we're going to dynamesh it, something like this. As you can tell, the quad sizes are kind of fine, so we can just carry on like this. So at this stage, we can already start getting some more anatomy facts in shape. So we're going to start already pulling this area down. We can start working already in the nasal area. At this stage, we can already even been working out the nostrils a little bit more, just to kind of have an initial shape in place, just without considering right now much proportions. Right now, as I said before, I'm trying to have as much anatomy facts covered in this area as much as possible. Let's focus on this on the other profile view, just to try to get something similar. Tell me.
Yeah. So right now, it's still very much a sketch at this moment. You have your reference, and you're just identifying all these shapes that make this person what it is, correct?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get a little bit of proportions happening, but mostly I'm just trying to get anatomy facts, because from the beginning it's not going to look like him. I try to do it in this way procedurally, so by the time I'm already tracing and looking for the likeness, I know anatomy is correct. Nice. Because one thing that happens quite a lot is that you can sense that the likeness is there in a lot of the skulls, but something is off. It could be just proportions, or it could be just that the skull shape is wrong, and I have done that a million times. So I try to be sure that from the beginning I don't have any anatomy weird issues. Yeah, that's kind of the main approach that I have. So when it comes to the mouth is very simple. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do one methodology of mine that I call it the M shape. Let me just build the resolution a little bit more. So I have a little bit more for the mouth. There you go. It's called the M shape. So when I think about the mouth, I always think about the letter M. So let me just draw a little bit of letter M here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a bit rough. So it's a very, I mean, I think when it comes to stylization, it's more obvious. When it comes to realistic, it's not so obvious, but it helps you quite a lot to define the different tubercules that we have in our lips. So on the top lip, we have 3 tubercules that are going to be the central and the lateral, and the lower lip, we have the two tubercules. And this is going to help me to define those volumes. So let me show you quickly. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to mask things out here. Very, very rough. Let me just mask a little bit. And then I'm going to push it a little bit just to the front, just like this. And one thing that is very important, when I'm looking for shapes, I always, from the bottom view, I always looking for a mountain shape. I will explain you later what I mean with that. So I'm going just to extract a very initial shape there. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to kind of do the same thing with the other lip. So I'm just going to quickly mask out this one, extract a little bit of this shape. And I think at this stage, I think it's better that I sculpt a little bit. So let me just quickly define this a little bit better. And now with my damp standard, which is the best brush ever, I can already start defining better. Oops, there you go. I can start already defining better those shapes. So this way is going to be way easier to define the lips. So by this stage, just by some very simple strokes, I can have already some definition of the lips. It's not his lips. But at this stage, I don't care. Again, I'm just trying to look for anatomy facts. That's the only thing that I care right now. The guy, I mean, something I like about the guy, he has super asymmetrical mouth. Let's see if by the end of the stream, I'm already on that stage of breaking asymmetry. But right now, let me just start making some anatomy facts here. So a lot of questions that I have from my students is about my lips looks wrong, how I fix them. For me, there is a very easy way to know how to fix your lips. Check them from the bottom. From the bottom, they should look like this most of the time. Let's say you should have like a mountain here that is going to be the upper lip, and then you should have a second mountain here that is going to be the lower lip. Just by double checking from the bottom, you can already start figure out if anatomically speaking, you are going somewhere, which can be super helpful.
That's a really great tip. That's super awesome.
Yeah, I believe to my students, it's just in 1 second, they just get it, and it's like, that's it. Yeah, and it's super easy. I don't know if someone told me, I just figured out by myself, I don't recall, but since I started, it's just pretty much, on the blocking the stage, that's pretty much what I double check, always from the bottom view. And also from the top view, to check the frontal bone is working correctly. It's a good way to double check here how things are looking. Anyway. So we have already some mouth happening. So let's start, polishing all the shapes better. We can understand here that the mouth probably should be slightly, higher. Obviously, all this area is not working correctly. I think when it comes to proportions, we can do something like this. I think all the lower area probably need to be pushed a little bit upwards in general. This is the gizmo. I just activate by pressing W. I always, reset the gizmo, and then I'm just going to push it a little bit more to the front. And when it comes to all this area, obviously we have so much fat. So right now I'm not going to be talking so much about fat in general, though we're going to jump into this guy with fat quite a lot in one point. And then here I'm going to be looking for the depressors that are this area here, so which is going to be very, very helpful to kind of define better the likeness. So just by doing that, I can define better the chin as well, which I can already start smoothing things out a little bit more here.
Nice. We have somebody, they caught, you said students, and they're really curious about where you teach and what you do.
Yes. So I co-founded a 3D school that is called Art Heroes. Just to let you know, guys, so you guys are aware, I have it open. I was going to talk about that later, but if you guys want to start taking a look, here we teach likeness. We also teach stylization in terms of characters. So if you come to artheroes.co, you can just jump into different courses, and you can learn more about when it's going to be happening the next intake. How does it work, how many weeks, the software, etc., etc. So here I'm teaching everything I'm teaching here, but just way more extent with a lot of anatomy and theory happening. So all the anatomy that I'm telling you here, there is going to be more theoretical, but but apply just to ZBrush. That is which is the most important.
Yeah, we just put a link in the description so you guys can check that out right now. But yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more before the stream is over with.
Awesome. All right, so I think at this stage I can already start thinking about bringing the eyes. I think here is where is the most important part. So let me just come here. By the way, let me save before anything happens, right? So save your work, guys, because you never know, right? I try to be sure that I had that thing open as well.
I save so often. I save every 5 minutes. I think it's redundant, but I don't know. It keeps me going.
but you know, when you get into the zone, you literally forget about the save more, about saving, about everything. And it's horrible.
When the autosave kicks in, that's when I remember I haven't saved in a while. Then I freak out.
Yeah.
Like, please.
Please, quick save it. Now, quick save it for real. Don't mess with me. But by the way, something that I want to show you, I did this on purpose, though in his case, actually quite opposite. He has his bite is, I think it's called underbite, when it's like a little bit like this. But anyway, I can sort that out later.
Okay.
All right, so let me bring the eyes. So, but for the eyes, what I do, I just bring one sphere. And I'm just going to rotate it on purpose. Let me show you the geometry. And I'm just going to place it here. So I'm going to activate the ghost mode, get something like this. Try to imagine how the cavity looks like. So try to imagine where it should be located on the profile view, how it should be located.
And do you find that difficult to find the eye position? Is it unique to an individual, or is there like a tip we can focus on?
Well, when it comes to likeness, eventually you do a lot of tracing. But I think at this stage, the most important is that looks real, looks like a human. So one of the tips that I have at least is that when it comes to the eye is an organ that is just there, right? And it's just literally rotating. It's also like a twisting. If I'm not wrong, even has a little bit of movement, like a back and forward and this kind of stuff. So it's an organ with a lot of liberty. So when it comes to the eye is kind of protected, it's covered inside the cavity by fat mostly, which is kind of cushioning the eyeball. So you have to think about the size of the eye, how it should look like inside the cavity if it's going to be covered by fat. So if I'm making in a very small stroke, I'm going to do it here quickly. If the eye is going to be something like here, like this, I want you to think that everything else that is happening here is going to be fat. The lower fat pads, also going to be the upper fat pads. All of that is going to be covering the eye to make sure that it stays in position. So that's one of the ways that I'm trying to do here. I know that all this area that I have here, that I haven't sculpted yet, is going to be covered by fat. So more or less, it gives me already the size of the eyeball. And when it comes to the profile view, it cannot always get into the same position where the nasal bone is. So more or less, you cannot position where the eyeball is.
Nice.
And from there, we start sculpting what is the eyes for real. So what I'm going to do right now, let me just quickly mirror this guy on the x-axis. So mirror, boom, and then that's it. And now we're going to jump back again into the sculpt. I like always to play with different materials. Just to let you know, guys, now that I was talking about our school, I always play with this material, the skin blend material that I created years ago. And for me, it's like a super helpful to when I sculpting. And you guys can find it, you can download it for free in artheroes.co as well, if you guys feeling like sculpting with this material. That I always find it super useful. So anyway, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start making a little bit of volume here. The reason why is because for me, it's going to be easier to kind of establish how the eyes are going to be looking like. So normally when I'm sculpting, initially I try to sculpt my characters sleeping. There is explanation why, and the reason why is because it's going to be easier to focus on the overall shape without focusing too much on the eyes, but having already some anatomy facts around the eyes always, right? So what I'm going to do right now with all this weird thing that I just push here, I'm just going to start polishing this area quite better. So just going to now with my dam standard, I'm going to create a little bit of insertion here happening, just a tiny bit. So this way I'm going to be already establishing where is the upper eyelid, the upper eyelid, and the lower eyelid. Same here. Probably at this stage, I need to check what is the distance that I have. Maybe they can be a little bit more in front. I'm going to figure out later. Let's keep it like this for now. And let me just quickly just kind of polish this area a little bit better.
Yeah.
So it makes a little bit more of sense. And
Yes.
something very important. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, I was
Carry
just
on.
going to say this is actually a really good tip for beginners too, because I think eyes are something that we all struggle with because it's hard to see when you're looking at reference how big something is. You're only seeing like a very small part of the eyeball on a person.
Yeah.
So this is a really good tip to kind of fill that space because you don't necessarily need to know how big something is. It's just how it's portraying, how the anatomy is laying on, and that. So I really like that. That's
Thanks. I agree. I mean, when it comes to eye, there are so many. And to be fair, like if you fail on the eyes, things kind of start looking, like that dodgy. So
yeah.
it's very good, to take your time and having some fundamentals already when it comes to applying, when start sculpting, right?
Yeah.
So for now, I'm just going to keep them like this. So one of the cool things about having the sphere is that just by having the sphere, I can understand that spheric shape that is happening. So at this stage, more or less, my eyelids are also spherical. So that's the only thing that I want for now. Okay. So as I said before, I have the guy sleeping, which is absolutely fine. The other things about all the area from the orbital, obviously, this anatomically makes not much sense. And again, when it comes to the orbital, I always looking for one specific shape, and it's like these 3 triangles that I'm going to be drawing here. It's kind of very characteristic shape when it comes like one it goes outwards, or one kind of goes inwards, and it kind of helps you to kind of define better how the overall eye is going to be looking like. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to, because of this guy has like this type of eyelid, I'm just going to quickly just push a little bit this area. So just kind of naturally, I start having a little bit of that, a little bit of this small line intersection that is happening in this area. Very small, which is kind of defining, technically speaking, it's kind of defining the upper eye, the upper fat pad, that is this one here, against the orbital area, that is this area here. So let me just quickly just go ahead and start defining all of this a little bit better. So at this stage, I can already start, pushing a little bit more the orbital. Now I'm looking a little bit more into the likeness itself. So I'm kind of start thinking more about this guy still is not there. So I'm going to start already thinking about all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Let me just kind of quickly. I kind of try to guess how he should look like if he's sleeping, right, with the closed eyes, which is, I think, for my opinion, a good way to kind of just focus into the anatomy for now before jumping into anything hardcore. Let me just fix already here a little bit this area.
Yeah.
So at this stage, we have just, a sleeping guy. We haven't touched the fat in this area, but more or less we have already some humanoid shape, which is very interesting, which is more or less fine. Later on, we're going to be opening the eyes, and he will be looking slightly better at least. Okay.
Yeah. Now, when you get to a stage that you're happy with, because we're just focusing on anatomy, we're not actually dealing with likeness at all. So,
No.
Would you recommend that like they do this from scratch every time, or once in a while, and maybe save out an iteration that they could start from, so they can just dive in?
That's a very good question. I have tried everything, every likeness request, different approaches. It's very interesting. Some faces, for example, the last one that I did it from scratch, and I have the impression if I start from a base mesh, I wouldn't be able to get that far for some reason. I don't know. I feel, I mean, maybe it's just a personal interpretation, but when it comes maybe to more generic faces, it's better to work from a base mesh. When it comes to more like a character, faces with more charisma, more asymmetry, better start from scratch.
Yeah.
In any scenario, in both cases, you need some anatomy facts to kind of play around with. But yeah, it's a very good question. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know in that sense. I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I would say it's definitely artist dependent, but I mean, always at the end of the day, I fall on the sword of starting from scratch because it's good practice. Anatomy is a life journey for me, at least. I'm always trying to update my knowledge and
Yeah.
better. So.
Absolutely agree. When it comes to to learning and also to kind of improve your skills, there is nothing better than just putting yourself in a situation. Obviously, if you start from a base mesh or a predefined sculpt, what is going to happen is that you are not covering certain areas that perhaps they need more attention, and you are not so aware of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that it should be more yeah, just play with it. Put yourself sometimes situations where you have to sculpt from scratch. Ideally, that would be the best scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me do something before I jump into everything else. Let me just put the ears. For the ears, what I do is something very, very stupid. Normally, I just get one sphere, I just rotate it, like something very simplistic. And I just going to quickly, just put it there. Just
Nice.
more or less, we know the zygomatic is going to be there. So we know that the ear is going to be happening in this area. Again, I don't going to start sculpting the ear, and perhaps I won't even have time to sculpt the ear in this stream. So I'm just going to have at least the ear more or less positioned into place. Let me just inflate it a little bit so it doesn't look that horrible.
Just more for like reference, just to have and make sure
Yeah.
and stuff are right.
Yeah, and also I'm going to probably dynamesh the whole thing in one point, so it's going to be very useful having already some ear shape already in position, because otherwise he's going to be looking slightly weird, which I don't want, definitely. So I'm just going to quickly just mirror this guy in the x-axis, and now what I can tell is that also my overall shape, especially when it comes to all this area here, it feels like it should be slightly less expanded. And as you can tell, now is when I start really checking more my references. I already got, like, let's say, the sleeping guy. And at this stage is where I'm already start approaching the sculpting to more like, okay, let me check those proportions. So let me check those references that we were just talking before.
Nice.
And something very important about the ear position is going to be defined where the zygomatic bone is. So more or less, I have a little bit of a sculpt here, but just to show you, the zygomatic bone is going to be always pointing to the inner ear. So more or less, just to let you know how it's going to be happening there.
Nice.
I wonder if let me just flag a little bit of neck here, because perhaps it's going to help me to define him even slightly better.
And on a given time, do you say, so you stay? We had a question that came in, like, do you break symmetry early in your sculpt, or you're more focused on, like, after the anatomy? Let's say you got the whole anatomy and you're happy, you're ready to go into likeness. Do you break symmetry, or do you stay in symmetry? We touched on that a bit, but
yeah, that's a good question. Once you start tracing is when you break the symmetry. So I will normally start breaking the symmetry once I already wrap the guy into a base mesh, because obviously I will need to get him into a base mesh later on, and it's going to help me naturally to play better with symmetry, because I can use the transform possible symmetry, which is going to let me also to play with different positions of the head and this kind of stuff. So I normally will try to do it later for sure. At this stage, I don't. But let's see if by the end of the stream, by any chance, we have enough time, and then we're in a better stage rather.
Yeah.
I can already start playing a little bit with asymmetry, because I even want to open his mouth a little bit if it's possible. All right, so let me save it quickly before I forget.
You had a side menu for that mirror deformation that you use. Is that just a custom menu that you created, or just
this one? This one, or yeah, yeah, exactly, or this one here.
That one when you mirrored it, yeah.
This one is inside Z plugins. If you go to Subtle Master, it's the same one here. So I just literally extracted this button and just put it here. It's super, super useful, because mirroring is something that I use all the time. So I definitely just plug it out all the time.
Yeah.
All right. So I just want to make a little bit of like a little bit of there you go. A little bit of the neck, just because. Let me just divide a little bit.
Yeah.
And now,
while you're doing that skull in the corner that you have in your cam view, is that your sculpt that you did?
This skull shape, it comes from the Scan store. I asked James specifically for it for our likeness course, because great of areas of the anatomy that I'm teaching, I'm using the cam view to teach it, because it helps you quite a lot to kind of define some areas and also understand also this shape. So it happens on the likeness course. It's the first download that you have once you start the course. So okay, so let me just kind of help this a little bit. I think it looks a little bit dodgy, but anyway, something like this should be fine for now. The skull shape looks a little bit weird. So, and also this guy doesn't have too much volume when it comes to the cranium for some reason. Let me just attach this to the occipital area. Yeah, something like this. Something like this for now. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do right now, because I feel like we have already all the elements in place, I'm going to Dynamesh everything except the eyes, obviously. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to I'm going to merge down. So if you go here, merge down, always okay, always okay. So at this stage, we're in a good stage to already start looking for the proportions that I was saying before, right? So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to go to Dynamesh. Let's see if 120 is enough. It's not enough. Let me just put something like 185.
Do you ever use that picker? That picker button in Dynamesh? There's a picker button there. If you grab that picker button, click it and drag that over your mesh, drag that over to your mesh. Like click and press, go to mesh, and it'll tell you what the resolution is.
Wow, you see, like ZBrush is somewhere that like
you don't have to guess anymore.
yeah.
That was the big Dynamesh for a lot of us. Like, what resolution is it? It says 128. I don't think so.
Man, I'm going to look like a pro next time I say that. Like, check out the picker.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
now, and it's funny because every time I talk to ZBrush artists or even go to the ZBrush Summit, we start talking about stuff, technical stuff in ZBrush, and everybody just comes with a bunch of, like bottoms and like hacks. It's like, man, how on earth I couldn't live with it. I didn't know about that. Like it seems so basic, right? Like and you just don't know about it, right?
Yep.
Anyway, let's talk about the likeness. So let's start approaching this guy. We have all the elements. We have most of the anatomy facts in place. We have most of the stuff happening here. Let me just define a little bit better what is all the orbital area a little bit more in this case. And now let's talk about this guy specifically. How much time left we have?
So we're actually going on an hour, so we still have like another 30 minutes.
All right, I'm going to try to still go faster. All right, let's talk about likeness. So at this stage, I'm going to start already approaching this guy the way it should be. So obviously, I'm going to be already taking in consideration what I see here, a little bit of anatomy facts. This guy has again like this under jaw bite, so it should be somewhat obvious. So what I'm going to do is just going to mask out this area here, and I'm going to put it like this, just a tiny bit. And it's very interesting because his chin doesn't actually get that far, so we can already start, smoothing things out in this area a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to all this area here, obviously we have the marionette lines. We have a bunch of very characteristic fat pads in this case. When it comes to this area, that's a very characteristic fat pad in like very old people. Mm-hmm. Something that I try to do when I'm already working volumes, just to guys let you know, I overreact the shapes, then I start smoothing things out like crazy. And from there, I can already start defining slightly better how it should look like. Maybe it's a weird methodology, but again, I don't see myself as a very artistic artist. I'm more like a technical artist in that sense. So my approach is more like more methodological rather than artistic, which I think it can be helpful because you can approach a bunch of different likeness in many different ways, which is always very good. Let me define the lower, the eye fat pads, that is so characteristic. So we can already start covering a little bit of likeness here before it's too late. So we can already start going here a little bit.
So while you're doing that too, because you have your images in Spotlight, do you ever overlay an image over your sculpt to kind of check to see if it's coming along, or is this more like you've developed an eye over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I normally try to do it once I have everything in place. So right now we have the anatomy facts in place. Now we're looking for the proportions and some likeness, approach. From there, I will be wrapping all this is called into a real base mesh, and there is where I will be doing the tracing. So that is where I will starting overlaying the spotlight on top of the sculpt, and then start double checking how things go in that sense. So yeah, that's the final goal. So let's try to open the eyes. I think at this stage it's the time to open the eyes. So it might look weird like they always do, but hopefully it's not that bad. So we're going to start getting closer right now to to the the eyeball that we created before. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to start sculpting even stronger here. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to start trying to get some geometry in, so this eyeball pop up a little bit more. So just by doing that naturally, I can already start guessing how the eye should be looking like. It's one of the approaches. Obviously, you can be using the sculptures. I personally don't like using the sculptures by this stage for some other reasons. So I will be doing this and then some dynameshing on top, and then fixing things by the time it happens. Let me just pull the eyeball slightly inwards a little bit. Let me push this slightly outwards and repeat. So we are going to be pushing all this area a little bit inwards, and this area a little bit inwards as well.
Yeah.
Something very important, every time you're creating an eyelid, try to think of a lemon shape. That's something that I always try to explain. So when it comes to from corner to corner, it has that lemon shape, if you guys allow me to say that. And that helps you quite a lot to define better the eyes area. So just by doing this, more or less, I have something happening. So at this stage, I need to do some dynamesh because obviously it's not going to hold. Let me even put something like a 200 because I think I need more geometry in general. So at this stage now, we have enough geometry to play with this guy.
Yeah. And this is where you get to really play and really start exploring the shapes.
Exactly. Yeah, these stages when you start getting more hardcore. Obviously, we might not have enough time to kind of explain some of the anatomy facts at this stage because probably it's a bit more hardcore. So right now, what I want to do, I want to start focusing quite a lot into the likeness itself. And you guys, meanwhile, keep asking me questions.
Yeah, actually, we got one right now. Sculptors Pro, do you use it? Do you not use it? Do you recommend it?
I personally don't recommend it. The reason why, for you guys for some of you that might don't know what is Sculpt Lips Pro, it creates topology when you're sculpting. So one of the things that I don't like is that naturally when you have a surface with more topology, there is a tension in between. You might don't see it here, and especially when it comes to eyes and mouth, if you Sculpt Lips Pro, you start having some tensions and you're going to kill it anyway. So I'd rather just go for dynamesh from the beginning, this stage. It can be very helpful though. I just felt like it's not so necessary, at least for my pipeline.
Definitely, yeah. I definitely recommend people playing with it and just seeing how it works for them. I am one who doesn't use it too often. Sometimes when I'm ready to ZBrush and I need to really define an edge, I find it good to use it just to get that extra geometry in there and then ZBrush, but I never really rely on it much either. But it's good to play with.
I think it can be very helpful for some scenarios. But when it comes to faces, I found like more problems rather than actually helps you.
Yeah.
At least that's my kind of.
And that's okay. Yeah, I mean that's the beauty part about ZBrush is that every artist can come in here and you can just play, find a feature, try it out. There's so much to do and so many ways to do it that at the end of the day you get to find and develop your own pipeline, your own process. You don't have to. It's not so rigid that you can't try things out. So it's nice.
One guys that I want to show you, I always like to put myself some tips. It could be they could come from polypaint or not. By that I mean like even eyebrows or something that is characteristic to start seeing the likeness. So something I want to do from this guy, I want already to start extracting what it would be the mustache. And the reason why is because I think it's so obvious the mustache to this guy is going to help the likeness. Because some cases, especially when I have word likenesses where there is a lot of facial hair, like a beard and like a lot of hair, if you don't have your placeholders in place, you cannot guess it's the person. And it's a pain in the butt because you are literally looking for the person, but you are not able to see him if you don't have these tiny helpers. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to place some tiny place color just for fun.
Nice. And what he did, he masked off that area and then used extract to get
Yeah.
that little shape in there.
Yeah, I use the subtool, extract, accept. That's one of the cool things about ZBrush. You can already start, customizing your UI. I love it. And then every time there is update, everything updates. So it's pretty rad in that sense. I think just by putting the mustache kind of help, to be fair. Like, and I love that when you already see that. All right, I think I'm going the right direction, right? So at least it's not that bad. Let me just pull this guy a little bit grayish.
So it's because you kind of consider yourself more like technical in the way you approach things. Do you like use the golden ratio at all, or is it, sometimes you just have like you overlay that kind of mentality of that 3/4 view, like gotta follow a certain feel? Is that something you go to a lot?
You mostly refer for compositional reasons. Well, I mean, I get to use this kind of stuff. I guess when it comes to at least, I don't know. I'm an engineer by degree. Something that I not too many people know. I'm an engineer actually by degree, so I'm kind of very used to be very methodological. I'm very methodological about everything in life. I'm super rational about everything, so I don't jump into anything until I don't fully understand it. So when it comes to likeness, I couldn't just start sculpting just that freely. I don't have that mindset, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
So my only way to kind of go around it was literally trying to make a hack where actually I can understand a little bit better about the methodology, anatomy, and little by little just trying to get it. When I present my works, obviously I try to go for the quarter, the 3 lines and also the golden ratio. But when it comes to sculpting, etc., I don't really get that crazy in that sense. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think you just blew somebody's mind. They're like, engineer too. Oh, great. The more you know.
Yeah, but it's so interesting about being an engineer because I graduated and then I never used that diploma ever because I was already working on the industry. And it's very interesting because I actually didn't want to be an engineer. I never want to be an engineer. My long story short. So my dad is a teacher in the university in Malaga in Spain. That is where I lived most of my life. And he pretty much told, or we're 3 brothers, like, you guys have to study something. Yes or yes. And I was obviously baffled because I wanted to be a 3D artist. Back then in 2005, when I started, there was literally no 3D school, or everything that was a 3D school was like a dodgy and too expensive. So I have to study pretty much engineering because there was nothing else to study.
Nice.
And the reason why I choose is because they had one software. There was one lesson, one of the classes, one of the subjects that had 3ds Max, and I just choose it. All right, it has 3D. That's it. I'm in. I'm going to finish all the 3 years, make the final exam, everything. That's pretty much the way I graduated. So,
but all that knowledge is super relevant. Like even having that type of background, a lot of us just the desire to learn helps us too in our career. We always want to proceed and gain more knowledge so that we can apply that to our skill set. So the fact that you even have that background, it's really cool because it really set you up for getting those foundations built that you can work off of.
I agree, and I think it's very relevant. Even great artists have a methodology. When you check books about drawing, they don't start drawing like crazy. They start from a sphere, they divide it in the cross, and there is always a methodology. So naturally, is what is going to happen. That naturally we are going to always, trying to follow some steps that are kind of trying to get us closer where we want. All right, so more or less we have already most of the anatomy. I think at this stage I want to start opening that mouth. If I place the mustache and kind of getting somewhere, I wonder if I should start detailing something, because obviously detailing is a part of the process which is very, very fun. The promise about if we don't have enough time, maybe I'm using.
Yeah, speaking of time, like how long would you say a typical project, it would take you start to finish?
I think nowadays, if I'm lucky with the likeness, because there are likenesses, it can be 3 weeks if I'm lucky, which means that I hit the likeness pretty much in the first week. There are some other projects where literally I can tell that I'm not hitting the likeness, and I'm stuck, and they can take easily 1-2 months. So
That's good.
it can.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So it depends quite a lot on the faces. Just every face is a different world, you know.
Yeah. That's good to hear though too, because I think there's a misconception that, professionals, you hit it first try and you're done and then that's it. So
No.
it's actually nice to hear you say that, like, you get stuck sometimes, it's
Yeah.
it happens. We're human.
We're human and we feel like crazy. I mean, you can imagine how many frustrated attempts I have myself. Obviously, I'm improving over the years, so I'm slightly happier in that sense, little by little. But I agree that yeah, sometimes it just takes time. It takes time just to get there.
Yeah.
Which is natural. It's part of the process as well.
Yeah.
Trying
Absolutely.
to learn like this kind of stuff. All right, so let me. I really want to open his mouth.
Let's do it.
Let's open that mouth. Before that, I mean, I was mentioning about the pro area. I haven't touched it that much. I didn't pick up my brain that much, but I don't know if you guys remember that this initial stroke that I did here, it kind of went away. So I just want to kind of push it a little bit again. Again, for the same reason as before, I'm looking for those triangles that I was kind of mentioning before. So as always, I try to overact the shape, then trying to get the the initial, I try to smooth it out and try to get the volumes, and then from here I can already start trying to dig in and trying to get even in symmetry mode. Let me see if I can do it, if it makes sense or not. Trying to get a little bit of this brow area a little bit here.
Yeah. And already too, like if anybody's joining right now, when this is over with, the VOD will be up. So if you're interested in starting likenesses, definitely rewatch this, because it's going to help you kind of see that block out. So if you missed anything in the beginning as you're coming in, we'll have it up on YouTube as well, so you guys can check it out.
Yep. All right. So let me try to open that mouth. I forgot to do I don't have probably much time to do any tracing and also probably talk about proportions, because obviously there are so many facts. But the most important is that at this stage we're in a very interesting stage where literally we can already see a little bit of this character. We can already see some likeness happening here, and here is where I start feeling more comfortable when it comes to tracing, because if I'm not happy about this stage, I know that I can do tracing, because when it comes to tracing, you start deforming the character, and a lot of times if you don't place right the camera, etc., it doesn't work. So it's very important for you guys, make sure that when before jumping to any tracing, just hit all these anatomy facts as hard as you can before jumping to anything else. Let me save it and let me start playing with a little bit of asymmetry, just because I wanted, and I don't want to disappoint you guys. So I just going to divide it a little bit here, even 2 times. I'm going to create one layer just before anything. There you go. This one is going to be the symmetry layer, and also the one for opening the mouth. So I want to already start having some facial expression here happening. So I'm going to smooth things out here a little bit. Make sure that I'm just covering the lower lips, just to be sure that by the time I'm opening, I'm not messing things up too much. There you go. And now,
while you're doing that, do you recommend proficiency in portraiture when you're working even on stylized characters?
Well, if I recommend what?
Proficiency, to be well-versed in portraiture when doing stylized characters too, or would you say just like knowing anatomy would be fine when starting up stylized characters?
I mean, it's going to help you quite a lot. I personally believe, I mean, that's my personal opinion. Probably face is one of the most difficult things that you can do. And just by approaching at least realistic face is going to help you quite a lot to also go for more hardcore, so more stylized faces. For example, I was never sculpting much of a stylization until I started doing more for clients. And something I realized that just using the same methodology helped me quite a lot just to start defining volumes. Stylization is a lot about appealing. When it comes to a lot of appealing, which is just make the character look, like cool. And yeah, I think this kind of stuff just helps you, just having all these anatomy facts and having all these is going to help you quite a lot. Let me just quickly create one cylinder here.
Do you approach female characters any differently than male characters, or all the same?
All the same, even kids, everything is the same. Yeah, that's the cool thing about this methodology. It's kind of gender proof, if you can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just approach everything the same. I think it's easier because this way you also can identify better the issues.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Because again, you just focused on, and again, for anybody coming in, you just focused on anatomy, like structure, just anatomy, not likeness, not trying to match what he saw, just straight anatomy, and then started once he got that and achieved that, and you could do that with all characters. Get the anatomy.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just going to be easier doing this way. Let me just quickly make this just for fun. So it's kind of more obvious where the teeth are.
Now, I know you're nowhere near this stage, but we have somebody who's curious. Do you use fiber mesh at all for eyebrows, for the mustaches, any hair? Is that where do you use fiber mesh at all?
I mean, if I want to keep it just inside ZBrush, yes, of course. But normally I wouldn't, because I will do the hair in a different software. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't use fiber mesh if I don't going to do the BPR. Sorry, the PBR. Sorry, no, it's the BPR.
Yeah, BPR. You could.
BPR, yeah. Just quickly go ahead and do an inflation here.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, like you're just how far you've gotten today is really awesome to see that whole breakdown. So again, thanks for being here too to showcase these early steps, because I think it's going to get a lot of people started for sure on how to even start, you know.
I think it's about that. It's like mostly for people who is starting, it can be very relevant because they can see that it's actually not as difficult. And it's a process that it's actually rather fun once you have the right pipeline, because at the end of the day, it's just having the right fundamentals. Once you have the right fundamentals, you can start approaching things the way you want, you know, like you can start getting more don't export it to political. You can start getting more crazy about it. So yeah, just having the right fundamentals is super important for doing this kind of stuff.
This guy's coming to life.
Yeah, we're getting something. I think the eyes are not there yet, definitely, because we need to push this a little bit more. And obviously, this guy has a little bit of you know, like he's a little bit mad, so yeah, it should be a little bit more obvious.
Nice,
this kind of stuff.
And retopoing, obviously, you're going to do that towards the end of the process.
I don't do retopo. I just use a base mesh.
What?
I mean, you know how it works. When you are working with clients, they have their own base mesh, which is closed, with your own vertex IDs, which is already hooked into the rig. And now also for my template, I have my own base mesh, which is hooked to my own facial rig. So technically speaking, it makes no sense to do topology anymore. Just close that base mesh, and then just do the whole wrapping effect at one point. You know, like I think that's the best thing that you can.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think you just made a lot of people's day.
And now we're going to do the trick. We're going to poly paint the iris. Let's see if this guy looks like him. So this is the way to know if actually it's correct or not. So if we do this, yeah, I think more or less gonna go along.
Yeah, look at that.
More or less, like it's not perfect. Obviously, there is a lot of polishing here happening that we need to start already doing the whole, you know, like working with all the wrinkles and everything.
I mean, but you know, for what, an hour's worth of work, maybe?
Yeah.
It's looking awesome.
And it's still symmetrical. Probably I should start killing the symmetry at one stage. But anyway.
Yeah.
I think at this stage is kinda cool. He looks a little bit sad though, but it's fine. We don't fight. Okay. We were talking just before at myself about this guy, and he told me that the guy is actually a very nice guy. He looks like a drug dealer, but Danny Trejo apparently is like a piece of cake, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's super funny too, because like, you know, he's definitely typecast in that certain look, and you look at him and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna kill me. But then it's like, oh, you just hear nothing but nice things from him. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's super cool. Yeah. Yep, the stream is almost over. We're going to be wrapping up soon. We have about another 15 minutes in. So if anybody has any more questions, and also too, we want to leave some time towards the end so that you could talk about Art Heroes a little bit more for anybody who's interested in that stuff. And I'm going to drop the link right now again so people who are coming in can take a look at it.
Awesome.
Very nice, very nice. The quality of work your students get, with their likeness course, like when you're training them, how, like, what's the improvement rate you see? Do you get like a lot of beginners?
We have everything, because from when it comes to students, we have people literally starting from scratch. So if you maybe talk a little bit, we sometimes offer also bundles. So for people who is just starting, we offer also the ZBrush fundamentals, where we teach literally ZBrush from scratch, from literally how to make your own user interface, to how to create basic stuff, how to use the Z-boiler, how the brushes works, etc. So that's one of the cool things about how we can approach the program, is that we have literally all the levels covered. And also something very important, this, for example, just works from our students, literally just some of our students are just literally starting from zero, as I said before. And one of the cool things that we also have live Q&A sessions for our students. We also have a live forum where our instructors are always giving feedback to whoever is actually posting, because we have different programs and sometimes running at the same time. So you need to make sure that you always post your stuff to make sure the instructor see it and also give you the proper feedback. So it's very important for you to understand that here there is a methodology. We also even give a deadline, which is very important. When it comes to deadline, it's for us artists is to be sure that we also finish whatever we start. So just take a look here. Here we have all the information about the course, about our instructors, about even live testimonials from different courses as well. You have the price plans. We have everything here covered for you to check. And also, if you guys are interested in different courses, we cover 3D printing, we cover stylization, we cover different programs here. So nice. Artheroes.co if you guys are into characters.
Yeah, and we're dropping the link again so anybody can check that out. Very nice, very nice. We talked about perspective a little bit early, how you move into perspective pretty early in the process. So anybody who wants to, once this is done, you can go back and you can revisit that and the importance of perspective, which is important.
Yeah, perspective is super important to be able to cover it correctly from the beginning. Otherwise, you can be struggling a little bit.
They're asking, which course specifically do you teach over there at Art Heroes?
I teach stylization, slice, and also likeness courses.
Nice.
But when it comes to our instructors, it's going to depend which instructor is going to also give you feedback on top, which is very important because we have a lot of students in each intake. So we have different instructors for different students. And also depends on the plans that you also get as well.
No, that's awesome. And that's good. You have a lot of instructors too, because everybody learns differently, and it's nice to be able to have a little bit for everybody.
Yeah.
Nice. Very, very cool. And yes, Dynamesh is a big portion of your process right now.
Animation?
No, Dynamesh for your sculpt. Sorry, we had a.
When I'm blocking out, I think it's very relevant, mostly because I can start unifying, like a different subtools as I did before. Because again, I don't like sculpting things just like that. I like working with primitives, like cylinder for this, like spheres for this kind of stuff. So for me, it's just easier to read the overall shapes before jumping into any detail. Just a personal preference.
Yeah.
And helped me quite a lot to kind of, approach things slightly easier in that sense.
Very cool. Wow. All great questions, guys.
I think it's stage. Let me just start refining the ear. It's funny because the ear is probably one of the easiest things to sculpt. Probably because it's the one that you can fail the most. No one cares about the ear. So you literally can sculpt whatever you want. But it's pretty easy. It's very surprisingly very easy to sculpt the ear.
Yeah. Yeah, ear anatomy is very fascinating. I studied an ear for like a week just because I felt like my ears were terrible when I first started. So I was diving in. And then yeah, somebody blew my mind. I was like, just sculpt an ear. Like, okay.
It's called that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and it's very fun to sculpt. Super fun. Just an interesting fact that the other day I don't know why I was taking a look to ears or something, and there is like a whole new trend which people are removing all the inner cavity, as a perforations, and I was like, oh man,
Oh wow. Yeah.
crazy! Like the whole hole here, like man, that's crazy.
Do you happen to have any coupon codes that are active for Art Heroes? People are
I wouldn't know. I need to ask the team. About this kind of stuff. Even at this stage, I don't know if the intake is open or not. The best thing that you can do is just get into the website and then just ask in our socials. We have programs, also coordinators that are going to always double checking this kind of stuff, and they can give you better information about what's the stage of every course as well. Because yeah,
Nice.
that's the best thing.
Somebody said, just make all your characters wear headphones. You'll be good.
Yeah. That's the easiest.
Nice.
Here we have the. Here we have this stuff. It's funny because I would like to talk a little bit of the ears, but I literally forgot all the anatomy names about it. And something that I want to tell you, you don't need to know all the anatomy names. That's something that I think is very characteristic across all the character artists. We're obsessed about anatomy, and some of my friends are hyper obsessed about it. And in my case, I just know that most of the stuff exists. I know the most important names, obviously, but for example, when it comes to the ears, I don't fully remember all the names for the helix of helix. I don't really remember. I just know they are there, which is important. So
I'm
it's just about
with
practice.
names.
Yeah, but they are difficult, man.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I don't know who came up with those names, but they're tricky.
Yeah, I think half of them are Latin. Don't quote me on that. But
yeah, it's Latin, but man, it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky
Very specific question. So
Okay.
bear with me on this one. But are you using the ACES? Are you using ACES workflow? If yes, how is it better than sRGB workflow? I don't know what that means, but I think that's specific to you.
Yeah, when it comes to look depth, yeah, I'm using ACES since like years ago. And the reason why is because you can play way more with the highlights and also speculars.
Oh, okay.
And also standardizing VFX, so it's pretty much all ACES.
Nice.
For sure.
Nice.
Trying to check right now the ear height, because one way to notice is how it finished, and I can tell they should finish a little bit more lower in that sense. I think the eyes are a bit big, so I can just push them slightly inwards here.
Nice. Well, yeah, this is coming together really, really awesome. Before you know, you're gonna convert me to a likeness sculptor. Just watch.
And it's funny because in some cases it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere, but again, it's like if you're kind of following the steps when it comes to, again, anatomy facts. If you remember the first 30 minutes, it looks like a generic face.
Yeah.
But in 1 second, things change it, because the most important is that having those anatomy facts just in place, it really makes a massive difference. And now we can already have fun, because now it's just about looking for fat pads and this kind of stuff, which is great. Yeah. That's probably the most fun part of the sculpt.
And what program are you using to use your drawing notes on when you screen grab and draw? Which one are you using?
It's called Lightshot. It's free.
Nice.
It's free. Lightshot is free. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool because you can also make drawings on the screen and everything. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's
and when you're
critiquing work.
Yeah, exactly. When you're explaining things to people, I think it's very relevant in that sense. It helps quite a lot. Let me define a little bit the nasal bone here a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you go into depth with blend shapes at all in one of your courses?
With blend shapes? No. The plan is to get more into blend shapes. Right now in our heroes, we're developing new courses. And in the future, I'm going to be working one for blend shapes, and specifically using the book that I showed you before. Let me just show you again. I'm not getting paid to show this book, but obviously everybody should know about this book, Anatomy of Facial Expression. And get the physical copy, don't get the PDF.
Yeah,
what I
I
was
could
saying.
drop
Yeah.
those.
So
Go ahead.
so in the future, obviously, we have the idea of having the option of blend shapes. Right now, we are trying to develop more the other programs. So we focus more into growing also our expertise, because also the students are asking for anything. They are even asking, they want to start doing more rigging and animation. So if we are even start to talk with different artists to get them in as an instructors for different courses in our heroes. So but yeah, blend shape is going to be one of those, and I kind of personally would like to do it myself, because I do a lot of blend shapes.
Nice.
So I kind of used to this kind of stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we only have a couple more minutes left. About 5 minutes left. Is there any other thing you want to touch on specifically? Last questions as they start rolling through. We'll try
Yeah.
to squeeze them in there real quick.
Yeah, ask your questions, guys. I think I'm going to start wrapping this guy. I think it's cool because you have some facial expression happening here. Let me just quickly just extract a little bit of the hairline a little bit here, just for
Yeah.
fun. Let's see how even closer he gets here.
Do you think people mid-level can make a portrait? I'm thinking they're thinking like,
Oh,
hold on. Maybe I misread the question. Mid-level. What do you think? Oh, maybe it's asking like, they're asking, what do you think people mid-level can make as a portrait artist? I think it's more of like a job.
what they can as a job well, mid
You-
level.
Maybe like, what do you make a year? If I'm understanding that question right. If I'm not, Sonar, please correct me. But yeah, like as far as like career options, would you say it's decent?
But it depends. I mean, the question is maybe it's too generic in that sense.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I did something wrong here. It got super smooth now. What I did here? Oh, I did extract
Oh.
the opposite. Good job. I did
Yeah.
extract the opposite instead of extracting the right one. So this is the right one. So wait, what is the mask that I did before? I did a mask before. Of course so let me just extract it again. So well, I mean, it's a bit generic question, to be honest, like because
Yeah,
at the end
yeah.
of the day you try to specialize, so it doesn't really matter what level you are. It's more about what type of industry also you are targeting, etc. I mostly can talk about character art. That's what I do for living, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah, I wouldn't know how to answer it though.
Well, here, before, what about portfolio tips? As somebody who
Oh,
is getting into this, is there like
yeah.
something very important as a likeness artist to have within,
Yeah.
besides obviously a sculpt?
Yeah, I think nowadays the softwares are too easy to use. So I think most of the clients, in my opinion, they're looking for artists that are more able to do the whole pipeline, and by that I mean artists that are able to do the sculpt, also the look depth, and also the hair. So ideally, in your portfolio, you are showcasing already all of that
Gotcha.
in your portfolio, and I think it's kind of relevant, and it's not so difficult to do nowadays. So it's kind of important to start jumping into all these terrains, because it's going to help you quite a lot to find a job later on. So as you can see in my portfolio, I don't showcase much sculpts. I mostly showcase mostly look depth, to be honest, because that's what the clients mostly want to see. They want to see mostly how it's going to finally look, right? Because
Yeah.
I can plug this guy in Marvel set or in Beaver or something, can look anything. So ideally, you need to have also your skills in that sense.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so the question was asked earlier about what, we're talking about skill level actually, and since you just touched on skill level, they were asking, can somebody who start making portraits even though they may not have the current skill levels? And real quick, I just want to point out, this VOD will be available, and if you watch it, Marlon takes us through the anatomy blockout. So if you would like to develop those skills, rewatch this, because you already went through a good chunk of that covering the anatomy tips. But that being said, new student, new artist, they're scared, they're not quite sure how to even start with likeness. Tips.
Getting the fundamentals. I have had artists literally starting from zero the likeness course, and the outcome you can even see probably in the gallery, and the outcome is very good in my opinion, comparing to the first thing that I was doing when I started this kind of stuff. So I think having the right fundamentals, it's super important, and that's something that I did in our heroes. I try to be sure that whatever I'm teaching literally the beginner, and also I'm teaching the professional. I try to be clear and very practical about I'm explaining this volume or this area of the school, just to be sure that you're applying to ZBrush. So having the fundamentals is super relevant. It's super relevant for this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I would also add too, don't worry too much about I don't have the skill set or I don't know. Oh, just relax, open your mind, and just start trying something. Try sculpting. Try,
Yeah.
you know, the more we play, especially as artists, it's quality of time and practice. So the more you're diving in and the more you're practicing. I'm not a very good likeness sculptor, but if I wanted to start today, I do have years of sculpting, you know, toys. So I would start with what I know, which is those fundamentals, and I would just try it. And, you know, you learn in the failure. So the more you fail, you're learning on how not to do something, but you're understanding what you did wrong. And then when you break that down, you'll start developing the skills on how to correct that. And then you'll know what to look for when things happen. So there's no real easy book that says, here it is. It's going to be practice. So don't be afraid to dive in there and practice, even if it doesn't look like the best thing on the planet. That's not important. To me, what's important is just that you're practicing, that you're trying. And then, of course, too, if you look for a good school like what Art Heroes is offering, then they'll be able to help guide you into how to perfect those, you know, how to perfect the practice and get better at it. So don't worry too much about it.
Amen, brother. Hallelujah. I mean, it's all about practice. Yeah, at the end of the day, make sure that you love what you do, because you're going to put a lot of hours into it. So practice and just love it. Love the journey in that sense. Just open ZBrush and just start doing stuff. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. Last question, which is, what focal length do you think is best to work with portraits? I believe you said 85 in the beginning is what you tend to.
It depends. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the shot. For example, for this one, as I said before, if it's from far, I would hit 85 and probably a curve factor. But if I know it's a full portrait and I'm super aware, I will just go for the 15 millimeters as well.
Nice.
So definitely it will be something more like that.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here, Marlon. It's been a pleasure to hang out with you, to watch you work, and also to just answer these questions and just showcase what it's like, a day in the life almost. And it's been really awesome. So thank you.
Thanks to you guys for the opportunity. And I really hope that all of this was useful and you get something from here. And hopefully even if you were afraid about this kind of stuff, just check it out. It's not that tricky. Just put just some time and, you know, have methodology. That's it. That's all about it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, again, thank you guys very much. And that is it. Also, too, real quick, I'm going to showcase, just so you guys remember, because it's happening tomorrow. We are doing with me how it's made. We're making tabletop game miniatures. We're going to be making a well prop. And the skills that we're going to be doing there, you'll be able to start making your own little miniatures so that you can 3D print them. And this one, the one we make tomorrow, we're going to be offering as an STL for you guys to download and print and have fun and start playing with. So feel free to check that out. That's tomorrow. And then, of course, next week we have another industry spotlight. So you definitely want to stop by, because we're going to be talking to AMC, who's a game studio. So definitely come hang out with us. Thank you very much, man. It has been awesome.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks to you. And yeah, I mean, let's keep ZBrushing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that is going to be it. I will talk to you all later. Happy ZBrush.
All right, guys. Have a great day, guys. Ciao, ciao.